studio to discuss excerpts of their book.
All right, good evening and welcome to Vigilant Broadcasting Radio Station. I am your host, author Kimberly McLemore, and thank you for tuning in tonight to my show, The Author's Corner. Tonight we have two amazing guests in store for you. Let me take a couple of minutes and just tell you a little bit more about myself and the purpose of our show. I am the author of How to Be a Success by Just Being You, Are You Living or Existing the Pros and Cons of Balancing Life, and the 2019 ILA Award Author of the Year for Social Awareness for my book, Memoir, Deception of the Heart, A Real Look into Domestic Violence. I am also the CEO of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, the host of podcast Your Resource for Success on iHeartRadio, the founder of Author Kimberly M. McLemore, LLC, and co-owner of Talk Radio and TV Network, LLP, and owner of Vigilant Broadcasting. The whole purpose of this platform is to provide new and existing authors an opportunity to promote their books, their events, or any speaking engagements they may have, and of course, we want to know how we can get a copy of the book from them. But without further ado, and we do want to apologize for running a little late this evening. We're having some technical difficulties, but never fear, we are here. So let's bring in my first wonderful guest, best-selling author Becky Baldwin, author of Possibilities Realized. How you doing, Becky?
I'm doing great, Kimberly. Great, thank you. I'm excited to be on the show.
Well, I'm glad that you're here, and I do, like I said, again, apologize for us running a little bit late. We've had some quirkiness this evening, but we're here, so I definitely want to just jump right into this so we can talk more about what you've been up to lately and a little bit about the book. So why don't you just tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, please?
Oh, okay. Well, I am a first-time visionary best-selling author of a book, of a collection of writers in my vision for Possibilities Realized. I have also been a contributing author in a #1 bestseller last year in 2018, but You Don't Know Our Stories from Trials to Triumph. I live in the DMV area, and I am the mother of one amazing 29-year-old daughter, and I am the daughter and only child of a single mom, Patricia Vanison. I am a human resources professional by trade, but I also have begun my own business called Emerge, which is an organization dedicated to lifestyle embetterment through wellness choices. And as an author, I now am also a co-host on the Dr. Sharon Show on her second Sunday of every month on the Book Talk Show.
That's right. You certainly are. And I wonder how I know that. That is because I sit right next to you on that Sunday show, which we will be on live this Sunday.
Absolutely.
So excited about that.
Absolutely.
All right, Becky, so you talked a whole lot about what you've been going, what is your background. So we're going to dive just a little bit more into that before we jump into the book, Possibilities Realized. So you, as you said, that you have a business called Emerge Inc. And talk a little bit more about what Emerge Inc. does through and for other individuals. Because I know it's a little bit more about wellness choices, but let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, Emerge Inc., I like to focus on the wholeness of the body, the mind, body, and the soul. You know, I like for people to, I think that we need to make people, or I work to make people aware about their choices in nutrition, that how our emotions or our feelings or beliefs or limiting beliefs can have an impact on our health and wellness, and how our mindset, the things we allow to stay in us, what other people may say, positive or negative, and our own awareness of the self-talk that we have for ourselves and being empowered. And I think that everything starts because we are of nature. We are created through nature. I think that I encourage people to understand that we should be putting live things back in our body instead of things that have been killed and then trying to put life back into our bodies. And just being aware I talk so much through Emerge Inc., talk to people who don't believe, or, again, a limiting belief, don't think that they can question the doctor about a medication or a prescription. And I encourage people, if you don't understand and if you can't read it and if you want to know how it mixed with something else, you need to ask. And I strongly, strongly encourage anyone within the sound of my voice to have a medical doctor, but try and find yourself a holistic doctor as well.
Right, and I think the big thing that, that people need to hear, and what you're saying is, in other words, have more than one opinion. The world we live in today is all about, here, I'm going to give you a pill for this, here, I'm going to give you a pill for that, and then you have this scenario of issues that can come with taking all those pills. It works on one thing, but then it can destroy so many other things, and I think that we are definitely seeing our communities change more into wanting to be healthier and utilizing more natural, from-the-ground type items that will make us feel better. And that's really how the world has survived for many years. Yeah. And so I love that what you are doing by creating this interactive resources on understanding what it means to be healthy. But you also have some other things that come with those tools, not just talking about the body, mind, and the spirit. What else do you provide to your clientele when you're talking to them about health?
Well, I am what I call myself a transformational coach, and I also talk to them about their lifestyles, how are they living, and what changes they can make. I also talk about the need to get moving. I think that is the most important thing that we need to do. The sitting, if you are a person who works in an office, I call it a desk jockey, which is what I do in my career profession.
Right.
I find that they say sitting is the new smoking. It has that type of impact on our bodies. And so I encourage everyone, and especially people who I coach, get up within every hour. If you haven't walked at least 10 minutes, get up and walk. Now, I'm not saying stroll and go visit the person over there in the other cubicle
in the other
or in the other office and sit down, but get up and walk. Do the stairs. Do the stairs and 1 floor, 2 floors, walk around and go down the other stairwell and walk around. But every hour we should be up, or get a standing desk. Because we hold all illness. Most illnesses start in our midsection, and that's where all our vital organs are that cause our body to function. And so when you're sitting, all those things are kind of pushed together, right?
That's true. That is true.
It's kind of stuck together, and so you get up and give it some air, let the blood circulate and the oxygen, and just let the blood start to flow. And so I think that that's very, very important. And I also share organic natural products through my business line that will also help them to change their lifestyle, which ultimately changes your quality of life.
Right, and that's the thing. I think organic is the key word. But I think the thing that really disturbs me, and I guess being that I'm a little older, and I think you can probably appreciate this too, that the fact that years ago we didn't have the problems that we have today. You could have your wonderful gardens in the back of your yard, and you can pull those vegetables up and you can eat them, and you were healthy and you were fine. And I think today the thing that concerns me was with all the pesticides, all the things that they're putting on our homegrown vegetables that we shouldn't have to worry about are coming inside our bodies. And so now here's this new thing called organic, and everybody has to pay this extra money just to eat healthy. What is your thought process on that, where you have to constantly spend more just to be healthy?
Well, I always say, what's your life worth? Is it worth 15 cents or is it worth $15 to you? But I get it. That was my thing. But I had an illness that caused me to change my lifestyle. And I think that I encourage people that, hey, you don't want an illness. Don't get there. And, yes, it's expensive to eat healthy because that's what society has caused. But I think again, I'm a woman of a certain age. And I remember having family members and grandparents and great-grandparents who ate even what I would say not as well as we do.
Right.
And yet, ate fried foods every day. And I barely eat them. But why did they live healthier? They lived healthier because food was allowed to grow naturally.
Exactly. Keyword.
Now, because of the population and the government wanting to feed more, and we have supersized this and supersized that, and what they're feeding if you're eating chicken, what they're feeding the chicken is important, because what they're feeding the chicken is what you're going to consume when you eat the chicken.
Exactly.
And so I also do, as you know, I like to do this thing I call In the Kitchen with Becky on my social media from time to time. And that's things I talk about, how to buy those things and keep and preserve them. You know, like lettuce. I used to buy lettuce before I was healthy, and in 3 days it was bad.
Right.
Of course, you don't want to waste money. But there's a way to keep your lettuce. I keep my lettuce fresh in my refrigerator, and it lasts 2 weeks, sometimes almost 3. So we have to learn how to store it, how to use it, and what it's good for, and purchasing it in the quantities that we need, really.
Exactly.
We don't have to purchase so much. You know, we don't have to purchase so much. We can purchase what we need. But it's a shift. It's a mind shift, and it's a mindfulness. Always being aware of the moment, in the moment, what you're doing. But what you're doing to your body, and what I encourage as I coach people is, the first week I start coaching people, I say, I don't want you to make any changes. I don't want you to do anything different than what you're doing, but I want you to document everything you do. And I give them a guide, I give them a workbook to do that. And then when we come together the second week, we try to modify some of the just little things, because some of the smallest changes can have the biggest impact on your health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I have seen, what you provide and promote as far as what people were, what they were, and where they're at now. I think it's, amazing. And like you said, a big part of it is truly a mindset, and that's with everything in life. When you decide that you want to do something, you have to make it up in your own mind, because you could have all the information in the world, but it means nothing if you don't utilize it, right? So you are definitely doing something that is amazing and positive. But let's now dive into this amazing book that you were the visionary author of, and its possibilities realized. And it's really a 90-minute biography and a memoir of short reads. It's an anthology. So talk about the book, and what made you decide to come up with this book, Possibilities Realized?
Well, after when I was a contributing author in You Don't Know Our Stories from Trials to Triumph, I never thought I could write a book. Who cares about my story, right? But then I was just sitting one day shortly after I was in 2018, and something said, Possibilities Realized. Now, this jumped in my head. I didn't know why it did, but I wrote it down. And as the year went on, I started to get a vision, and clear vision, of what that Possibilities Realized meant. And it meant you have heard so many people, and you know so many people. We all have a story that needs to be told that will encourage someone. And I've had friends who their stories just were compelling to me, brought tears to my eyes, made me smile, made me happy. And I thought, so many people don't hear about that. And wow, what an amazing opportunity for you to share it. I would love for you to share it, because I think so many people need to hear it, especially in my community, of the African-American community. When I was growing up, you didn't hear about things like people being depressed, or people being adopted, or mental health issues. You just didn't hear it. You would hear something wrong with Junebug. That's what you would hear. Or you would hear, don't make her mad, she get mad, she'll hit you. Or, that's, wow, they look just like Mr. Jimmy around the corner.
Right, and
or your grandparents are raising the kids because your parents couldn't afford to take care of you, to care for you maybe. Right? And so you were adopted by grandparents or some other family within the community even. But you never knew it. You never heard about those things. But when I heard people talking about it, friends of mine sharing it, I said, I think this is something people need to hear because, like I just said, the example. I remember growing up hearing people say, something just wrong with Junebug. Just don't mess with Junebug. No, Junebug had a mental illness that went undetected.
Right, and even to this day, I think there's still a lot of that goes on, that people of color are still being undetected. You know, it's always the excuse when something goes wrong that, oh, well, you know, they have an illness. Well, has this person ever been checked for having an illness? And it seems to still be an issue within our communities that people of color are still not being appropriately diagnosed when there's something going on. It's always just the assumption that we meant to do it, or there is a problem there. That's just who they are. That's how they act. And a big part of it, like you said, is that we don't still have some of those conversations within our families as well to even understand what the history of what we may have that has caused those individuals or that individual to have an illness. So, you know, being able to communicate is extremely important. And I love what you did by getting these women together, but talk to me and the listeners about what some of those stories were and are in the book Possibilities Realized.
Oh, wow. Well, we have one, I have a story in there where woman, the writer, she tried to commit suicide over and over again at a young age. She writes about when she was 10 years old, but that wasn't the first time. Wow. That was like wow for me. It's not just women. I do want to speak about, I have a gentleman who also wrote, Mr. Malik Harrison, and he wrote about, his story was Why Stop Now? But, I mean, his opening paragraph blew my mind. It caused me to cry because he was saying, you know, he grew up not thinking that he would ever live to even make it out of his community or out of high school because so many of his friends, he always saw R.I.P. on a T-shirt. You know, and so I have another writer. She was adopted. And you didn't hear about adoption. She was adopted, and she talks about what a blessing her adoptive parents were for her, that she didn't feel adopted, but they were open with her. And she found out through her research and when she had a child who may have had a hearing impairment, she realized she needed to know about her birth parents' medical history. You know, because it was impacting her children, her offspring. And as a result of that, she talked about all that she went through and what she found out, and she even found out that she'd grown up in the neighborhood where her other siblings were. She knew them but didn't know them. So the story, you know, just compelling, you know. Another writer talking about visions that she had, that her grandmother had talked about when she was a child, that she ended up having and not realizing they were visions until after the situation happened, that, wow, I had seen this, and how things had just been projected to her long before they were going to happen, and what was the driving force for her to continue on. You know, another writer, she writes about, because I have 5 other than myself, and she writes about how she's an adult, but she had been a traveler, and she liked to travel, she liked to do things, but she never did anything by herself like that. And when she was forced or confronted with that situation, and how she had to really muster up all her grit and, you know, and from the pit of her soul to say, I'm going to travel abroad by myself. And she calls it grownish, you know, because she's like, I didn't realize I wasn't being as grown as I thought I was. And it's a day-to-day evolution sometimes.
Right.
Right. And then my story, I absolutely contributed to my book, and my story was When the Bottom Falls Out. And it was just, I talk about, I was married and got divorced, and now I was a single mom with a 1-year-old on my hip. Now, her father was very active in her life, but I had to do something that I never thought I'd ever have to do. I never thought I'd be a single mom. Never thought I'd be a parent, you know, divorced. So all this was new thrusted upon me. And then I had a kid on my hip. And how I had to move so often due to finances or situations beyond my control. And as a result of that, how I felt like it wasn't enough, like I wasn't giving my daughter a fair chance at having a solid foundation.
Right.
But then finding out that our kids, they turn out great. We sometimes overthink because we're thinking about what we want to give them instead of what they are receiving.
Exactly.
So I think all the stories are a great collection.
Yeah, but what I love what you just said is how it's very compelling that you sat there and thought to yourself that you didn't think you were giving up because the child didn't have a full family. And that's compelling because, you know, I'm a single parent too, and I've been through that process, you know, and I always wondered, you know, well, what would it have been like if his dad would have stayed and we would have stayed married and we would have had this one that. But then you, like you say, you look at your child and you realize that they are much stronger than we could ever possibly imagine, you know, absolutely. And that they still are getting enough. And I think the beauty of your story is the fact that even though you were no longer married, that the father was still a huge part of your daughter's life, and I think that's very important because sometimes parents can't just always make it together, but they're better apart.
Right.
And I like that we were able to share that feeling of what it feels like to be dropped all of a sudden the one day you never thought in a million years you would ever be divorced, because we all think that when we're married, we're never going to get divorced. That's the whole purpose of being married, right? So,
and I think sometimes it's what we see growing up. We talked about that when I talked about my business. I never saw anybody get divorced in my family. I thought marriage was forever. So, again, it's a limiting belief, right, that I had created in my own mind. I knew divorce existed. I just didn't think it was going to happen to me.
Right, exactly. And I feel the same way, you know, when I come from a family, my parents have been married for 55 years. So, you know, you always dream as a child that you want that same perspective, you know, that, wow, I wanted the white picket fence, you know, the little family, the cute little dog, you know, the whole perspective. But you just don't know what life throws at you. Right. But I like the fact that you were able to allow other men and women to be a part of your vision and for them to share their stories, because there's always somebody out there that will connect with their reality. It's amazing. And I definitely appreciate that, and I'm absolutely going to have to read the book, even though we see each other a week and we talk about this. And we actually have spent a lot of other time here recently with each other. For those who didn't know, Becky was a big-time author out in Manhattan, New York with me. And it was fun. We had a great time, and we definitely learned some lessons from that. But the key thing is that, you know, I love how you're constantly pushing and you're doing what you are doing with your books and taking care of those who aren't able to take care of themselves to some degree, but you're teaching them the right way. So that is amazing. But before we end this evening, is there any last words that you would like to share with our listeners?
Yes. I want people to know that they are not alone. Don't think that things cannot get better. I don't care until you can't wake up and your life is gone, you can turn it around. So you're not alone. Don't think I'm the only person who had a kid out of wedlock, or I'm the only person who's got divorced. You're not. Your story is compelling, and it is what drives you. You can either let your circumstances consume you, or you can realize that I can possibly get out of this and I can do better than this, because it's true. And that's what I want readers to get from my book, that you can get out. I mean, a woman who tried to commit suicide so many times before she was even 10 is alive to write her story, right? Thank God that she wasn't successful.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, and I honestly believe that it was not her time.
Absolutely.
I had more for you.
I felt like her story needed to be told because he has more for her. Yes. So you're not alone. I want people to know you are not alone, and you can lift yourself up through whatever it is we got to go through it, but we don't have to let it consume us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that was an amazing interview, and Becky, it has just been such a pleasure, and I thank you for coming on and being patient and spending time with us this evening. And for those who missed out on not hearing this best-selling author, Becky Baldwin, author of Possibilities Realized, you can go back and listen to the replay later, but I'm telling you, you have to listen to what she has just expressed and has explained. Her conversation was amazing when it comes to talking about all of the things that she has accomplished and working with others. But the thing I love is the book Possibilities Realized, because she has allowed other individuals to share their stories in a way that they have not been able to share before. And that's one thing about the beauty of being an author, is that you are sharing the experiences now, but think about the legacy later on in life. So if you missed this interview, make sure you come back and listen to the replay. But again, Becky, it has been an opportunity. I appreciate it, and that you were able to come on this evening and share your stories with us. And then until next time, actually, I will see you in a couple days. so I will see you, but thank you for coming on. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be bringing back our next guest soon.
Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Welcome back to the Author's Corner with your host, author Kimberly McLemore.
All right, hello listeners, and welcome back to the Author's Corner. I am your host, author Kimberly McLemore, and now let me introduce to you our next special guest author, Alston, author of BMWOC Magazine. She is founder and CEO of ALSTNTEC, a certified SBA, ED, WOSB, and certified DBE, MBE, SBE consulting company. Ann's extensive background comes with over 20 years of providing valuable career transition and small business development services. Ann's mantra is partnership, growth, and results is what she always strives for everyone to accomplish. Through her learning courses, workshops, and speaking events, Ann continues to promote positive changes to her clients that will last a lifetime. Ann is also the president and executive director of Destination Achievers Incorporated, a Maryland 501c3 organization, providing workforce training, outreach programs, and creator of the Business, Men, and Women of Color podcast and magazine platforms. The BMWOC is a global online platform that shares career and business trends of working professionals, business owners, speakers, and authors. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform and my special guest author, Ann. How are you this evening, Ann?
Hey, how you doing, Kimberly? Thank you so much for that awesome introduction, and thank you again, too. I just want to put out there for being a wonderful BMWOC corporate sponsor.
Well, thank you very much, and you're so welcome. I am so excited about having you on. And again, I do want to apologize for us running a little late this evening, but I definitely wanted to make sure that we got you on because you and I have done some things together. I just have been excited about being one of the corporate sponsors for your BMW magazine, and I really want people this evening to learn a little bit more about your person, but I really want people to understand what it really means to have a magazine and the process that you go through and how you came up with all these amazing platforms with the podcast show and all these things, and you brought it all together so that people like me can continue to soar as well as you can continue to soar. But why don't you say hello to listeners and, like I said, tell a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, thank you for that awesome question. Well, I have been an avid, I would just say I am such a stickler for education. Let me just begin there. Going through school, being heavily bullied, and didn't have the best education from the time that I was in elementary school all the way into my 11th grade. And when I say I didn't have good education, by the time I got to 11th grade, I didn't know how to do math properly. I couldn't read properly. I couldn't comprehend. I couldn't even write an essay if my life depended on it. And when I got to the 11th grade, after going through so much with some schools that I ended up transferring out of in my 10th grade year, I decided that I will never, ever be without proper education again. And through that experience, I just decided that anything that I was going to do in my whole entire lifetime, that I was going to make it my business to invest in my education. And so throughout my whole career being in IT, and, you go through the motions where you are either laid off or something's going on in your career, or you just want to change, that started my journey on to workforce development, which I was really a part of way back in 97. When I was doing IT assistance with different organizations, like very small businesses and other organizations. And so through that time, I realized that there wasn't really much difference between career workforce development and business entrepreneurship, because that's basically what I was doing, was being a small business helping other small businesses, and I was also a small business helping individuals with careers. So fast forward into today, I decided that I wanted to start my own business to teach other people about those two areas. And so in 1997, I started A&M Creations. Serving the needs of small businesses is where I kind of started from. And through that experience, I've gotten to meet a whole lot of amazing people. But what was missing in my whole entire experience there was just figuring out what is changing over time, like what are the trends and what could be different when people are out there really learning what to do with their career or their job. And so I decided to reach out and create a platform called the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast about 5 years ago, just so that people can kind of talk to me about their passion, what they want to do, what they have been doing, so that people who look like us, or somewhere in minority, you might as well say, are seeing other people do these amazing things. And then, of course, the magazine was birthed a couple years after that. And I know I kind of just sped through there a little bit, but it's just so much in that whole entire history of me doing this stuff that kind of led to that, going into the school systems and being exposed to kids in one area of Maryland having an abundance of education, and then I go to another area of Maryland and there's a whole lacking of education. And so what I wanted to do with these two platforms is to bring an awareness of different things that kids can do once they come out of high school, and also for adults who are looking to change and elevate what they do. So that's sort of, how I kind of got there. And, I'm a mom. I have 4 sons, and through their education, I try to teach them what I've learned along the way. And so that brings me joy, and I just absolutely love what I do.
Well, it definitely shows. That I can tell you. Like I said, I've had an opportunity. We've had many conversations, you and I, and then, having the opportunity to be a part of, your magazine, being in your magazines, and being a part of the podcast, which I'm an award-winning podcaster under with the BMWOC.
Yes, you are.
So, yay, that was awesome. It was a really great experience, and the thing that I'm listening to you, and the thing I never knew about, of course, was the education piece, but it definitely, so that's why I said it really shows. And the thing that I like is that when you put together this magazine, the BMWOC Magazine, it's not your typical magazine. And what I mean by that is that it's not just a story about somebody. It really is educational. the most recent one that you just put out, the issue for October and December, it's all about financial. It's all about financial education, and it blew my mind away. Sitting there and actually getting the opportunity to read it, and looking at some of the pieces that you have in there on finances, economic literacy for youth, and effective healthcare solution, tax cuts and jobs, all these things that you have, you were really truly the person that is trying to educate and not just say, oh, I've got a beautiful magazine and everybody just put your information in there. How do you decide on picking these individuals to be a part of your magazine?
Kimberly, I have to say it's the work of the Lord. I really have to be honest with that, because for whatever reason, this is an assignment that he gave to me when I lost my singing voice, okay? Mm-hmm. When I lost my singing voice 5 or 6 years ago, well, I think it was a little bit longer than that, I suffered with bronchitis terribly, sometimes throughout the year. And every time that I try to sing, I get bronchitis and I couldn't sing for days. And that is something that, the Lord has given me. He gave me the gift to use words in a universal way that touches people, globally. And so with the podcast and the magazine is a way for me to use those same words in a expression that means so much to a lot of people universally, So when I am sitting up, just like I'm trying to contemplate what I want to do for the January 2020, I just sit still and I pray about it, and I let him tell me what it is that I'm supposed to do or what that assignment is. And then for whatever reason, those specific people just come to me. And I can advertise like 1,000 years, but only those people who are meant to be in that magazine are the ones that contact me. And I'm just so grateful for all of the people who have reached out, who have been a part of it, who have supported it, not just promoting it on their social media, but also financially, who've been a part of it. And I would just say that what the biggest blessing that came out of everything on both those platforms is that that all of these people found someone that they needed to find, to put something together or complete a puzzle. I've had people start their new podcasts from these platforms. They have engaged with other artists and authors to collaborate on books and workshops and conferences, and it's just a beautiful thing to see, because if it wasn't for these platforms, I don't think these people would have found each other, or it would have took a longer time for them to find each other. And I just have to, I have to give God the glory for that, because he gives it to me and I just do his assignment.
Well, I tell you what, you are following the assignment to the T, to the top, okay? Because like I said, I've seen many magazines, and like I said, it's one thing to have them, and it becomes just a part of what people think is the norm when it comes to doing a business. But you really do truly put in so much effort, and the information is very clear. The information is very educational, and now that I have a true understanding of what that all means to you, like I said, it comes full circle. And your voice is much bigger than just the singing, and even though I'm sure you miss that every day, but your voice is being heard in so many different ways. And with the podcast, beyond just the podcast and the magazine platforms, like I said, I know that I have talked to you on many occasions, and just in our conversations, you just blow me away, because you actually truly do educate. Even the few times we've talked, you have educated me on different things that we have very similarities with, but it's how you present them and what you do for others. It is truly a gift, and how you present it and share it as a whole. So talk a little bit, though, about maybe some of the challenges of what it takes to have this type of magazine and continually throughout the year, because you do it different issues throughout the year. So talk a little bit about some of those challenges with our listeners.
Okay. Sure, absolutely. So what are the challenges of having any kind of publication, whether it's a book or a magazine or a journal, is really just, one, having a creative vision to kind of see it before you actually write it. And I know that sounds a little weird, and maybe some authors can kind of relate to what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of look at what is the most important thing that people are missing, and then try to put that in a way where I can get the right combination of people together to bring that message out. And then the second challenge is that, honestly, a lot of us don't share the information or don't share that the opportunity is there. And if they do know that opportunity is there, they don't take advantage of it. I think all of that is a mindset. Sometimes it's a money thing. People just assume and they prejudge. But if they just open up their mind and see the opportunity that may come out of it, or the things that may, be birthed from it, it would be no different than people kind of going to, Black Essence Magazine. They know clearly what that is about. Or if they went to the old Jet Magazine, where all they had was maybe like 16 to 18 pages of just little spot news. But that little bit of news meant so much to a lot of people. So I think over the last 20, 30 years, a lot of us have forgotten about that passion, about actual physical magazines that actually talks about something of substance. You get the magazines that have gossip, and then you have a lot of fluff and a lot of ads. But my whole mission and my passion is to educate and to put the information out there so people can make an informed decision about their life and how they, are going to be better. And I would say the last challenge is just putting it out there, because for me, it's not all about the money. It's, I don't make any money from the magazine. My challenge is, how am I going to get it to as many people as possible? How can I get it in their hands? I think I've given away more magazines than I've ever actually sold magazines. But the end result is somebody has it in their hand and they're showing it to another person and they're learning something. And that is the biggest reward for me.
Exactly. And, just hearing that, what you're saying, it's really kind of a shame when you think about it that you would have to actually beg somebody to, in other words, to have a magazine of substance, because obviously we know things are changing and people are utilizing the, social media platforms to do everything. But, I guess I'm just old school, and it's no different than me having a book. I want it in my hands. I want to be able to go through it and review it as often as I can, and go back and look at those different people and what they're talking about, because you never know how something's going to hit you, and you can utilize it at a later point in your life. And so, like I said, what you're doing is great, but it's a shame that I think that people still don't get it to some degree, that when you put so much hard work in, like I said, this is a quality. This is absolutely a quality magazine. And for those who are listening this evening to this show, you need to definitely reach out, and you need to learn about this magazine, and you need to get your own copy, because there's absolutely some great work that's been put in this. And then also just putting it together, you actually use a local organization that puts your magazine together for you, right, when it comes to the printing and stuff?
No, I actually create the whole entire layout and everything, and then I have a printer that actually just prints it out. So I actually do the entire layout. I do all the color schemes. I choose every single picture in there. And I want people to see that, this is something that anyone can do if they just put forth the effort. If somebody wants to start a magazine, they can certainly do it if they just have the right mindset to just do it and just put it out there. Everything has to start from somewhere. Right. And with someone. I think that, and like you said, it is a shame sometimes, but the other side of that, the people who do take advantage of and buy these magazines, even in the store or on digital or whatever, those are the ones that are investing. And so we, as people who invest, need to encourage other people and say, hey, this is how we have to invest somehow, some way in their education, And I think that as a people that we would be so much better off. There's such amazing things that has happened in the last 3 years, but overshadows that is some of the negativity that goes on, but we have to be the ones to say when we're going to stop doing the negativity. We have to be the ones to stop that. But until that happens, it's going to keep precipitating over again. So my fight, and has always been, is to break the barriers of what goes on today and actually say we are all a people of color. That's really what the BMWOC stands for. It doesn't mean just people of African-American descent. It means all people of color. And so what I try to do is I try to bring as much diversity as I possibly can throughout the podcast and throughout the magazine as well.
Right, and you do, and that's important because, like you said, you know, sometimes being that we're black business owners, people have the thought process, oh, it's only for black people. Well, no, that's not true. It's your choice to think that way, but like you said, everything is all about all people of color, and it definitely shows, like I said, in the products that you have, and I think it's amazing. I did not realize that you actually did everything from head to toe when it comes to putting this magazine together, because it's just classy. And very
interesting. Thank you so much.
You're
well,
welcome.
One of the things, I'm sorry to interrupt. So one of the things I definitely wanted to do in the magazine is I want to take away the excuse that people can't format anything. You know, I tell them to send me the raw data, the raw photo, the whatever it is they want to send me. And then I put it in a way that is very visual for them. And even with the podcast, you know, I do the awards straight out of my pocket because I want people to be proud of what they're doing in their career or their business and to show that off as much as possible. So that's one of the fun things that I like, you know, about the podcast platform is that people are not just competing for fun, but they are really just showing off. And when we do the awards every single year, it just elevates that excitement and that passion even more.
Well, I can definitely testify that the podcast awards were phenomenal. I mean, when you said you were sending them out to everybody, I was not anticipating what I seen and what I got. It's just, they're stunning. You know, you definitely put a lot of thought into that, and, you know, to give that to us is a way of showing your appreciation. It's amazing, and I've been able to set it up on my table of awards. So I was like, so when everybody comes in the house, I'm like, look at you guys. This is all about me. This is what I worked hard for. But it does make you feel good. It does make you feel, you know, and know that you've done something worthwhile, and that people do value your work and value, you know, the content that you provide when you are participating in these type of events.
Yes, absolutely, and that's really what it's all about. I think a lot of times I know that we do amazing things, and I think in the last year and a half there's a lot more news channels that are advertising what we are doing in the community, and I think that is wonderful. But we still have to be diverse in this message, you know, not just African Americans, and I think that's great. With even the magazine that I did about judicial, I really focused on women who were, you know, first judges or first firefighters and things like that, but I still kept it very, very diverse in other areas of the magazine, and I think that that's really important that we promote that diversity as unity. And so that's another word that I like to use for my podcast and my magazine platform is unity, because that is really my ultimate goal, is to unify people together and say, listen, we have some people that have some amazing information. Come over here and learn a little bit of something. You may not use it today or tomorrow, but when you have to use it, you know that you have been exposed to it. And if people just have that mindset, then I think that it will be so much different in the world. It would be a totally 360-degree turn.
Right, and I agree with you, because we definitely need to hear more positivity. I am so tired of turning on the news and all we see is negative. You know, and it's every day, and it's all throughout the day. We're inundated with the negativity. So, you know, like I said, people just take 5 minutes just to learn about each other and learn about what they have to offer to the world. It would be such a different place to live. And, you know, it's unfortunate that year after year and day after day we're constantly having these same conversations, but, you know, it's the reality that we live in today. But it's people like you who are continuing to change those realities for people, as long as they're willing to open their eyes and their ears and listen and learn, you know, then they will understand the purpose of what you're trying to do for them as well as for everybody else. And I think that's important to understand. So, what you provide is not a hobby. This is your life. This is reality, that because you're so passionate about the education piece and sharing the resources, which is a huge issue that we have in our communities, is sharing, because everybody acts like they're, that they the only person who's ever did anything for themselves and think, oh, my God, I don't want anybody to steal what I have. Well, that's just not the proper way, and that's not how you survive or be successful in any type of business. And especially in something as specific as this, putting together a magazine is being an author. And, like you said, you really have to have a thought process of how this all comes together and then have the right valuable content and people to be a part of that. So, I do. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm astonished because I have seen others, and it's not about going against, one person or another, but quality is very important, and we all know that. And, the time and effort you put into it, like I said, it absolutely shows. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. I would also want to add to tips is, if anyone is thinking about starting a magazine, one of the most crucial things that I would say you have to pay attention to is making sure that you have a good flow of information. When I go into the grocery store, and these magazines have been out for years, when I go into grocery stores, these magazines have been out there since Star Trek days, so they are full of ads and things like that, but there's no flow. And so I like to have a little flow in the magazine. So I would just say to anybody that's starting a magazine, just make sure that you have a good flow between one thing to another thing. Make sure that the eye is easily able to read across, because people get tired quickly if they have to struggle to read something. So what I try to do is put something interesting, maybe a little short ad and maybe another article that's interesting, and things of that nature, to have some sort of flow and make sure all the colors are, are flowing together as well. That's another tip that I would say. And also just reach out to someone who also has a magazine and ask for advice. That's another tip that you could do, because if you're starting off at the first time, you really have to do your research as to what type of message that you're trying to do consistently, and also how much your budget, because magazines cost money. It costs money to make, it costs money to produce, it costs money to get it printed, and that's the most costly thing. So, when you mention about quality, is because I took so much time trying to find the right company that's going to give me the right type of quality that I was looking for. I didn't rush this whole process, and I did it digitally, and I wanted to take my time to find the right thing, because I knew in my mind, when I said earlier, that I really envisioned what I wanted it to look like and feel like, and when people got it, it was like, oh my goodness, amazing magazine. And yeah, it cost some money, but besides that, did you learn something? That's the bottom line. So, and speaking of education, one of the things that came to me, the Lord gave to me for 2020, is that I am going to be highlighting male educators, men who are in the education field that educate other men. Wow. I think that is very important, because we have some men just starting to come out of the shyness and really step out and do these workshops and show each other that they can be powerful as well. As women, we are known to speak up, right? So men are slowly starting to speak up, and I think this is an important topic for us to have in 2020, starting out the gate, that there are men out there who own schools and charters and helping other males out there, and we need to know about them. So one of my things in this feature is male educators. So that is something to look out for January 2020.
All right. Well, that sounds like it's going to be exciting, and definitely be looking for that magazine, so make sure my copy is set aside.
I sure will. I sure will. And that's the beauty, too, because one of the other things, too, if you don't mind me saying, is that I had actually asked for people who would like to contribute to the magazine, because one of the other things I'm trying to incorporate is other areas of interest in addition, like health and beauty and mental and anything else that is, indicative of a magazine. I think that I've done the themes for 2 years now, and so I want to incorporate a whole lot more diversity in terms of message and give it a little bit more flavor. So if anyone is interested in contributing to the magazine, I would certainly love to know who you are, and of course you get a complimentary copy of the magazine for which your article is in. So we'd love to hear from anybody if they want to contact me directly for that.
Awesome. So why don't you share and how people can get in contact with you and how they can also get a copy of the magazine and also be a part of the podcast, because, 2020 is just around the corner, and I know you'll be thinking about that soon.
You're right about that. There's so much on my plate. So basically, if people can go to www.bmwocpodcast.com, you can actually go there and check out the podcast season, which Kimberly and other 53 people are on this year that are still there on the website. And, yes, we're going to be looking at 2020. I have some things that I'm working on right now. I don't want to give it away because I want it to be a surprise, but definitely be looking out on what is going to be new and different come 2020 on year 5 of the annual BMWOC podcast platform. And so on that website, www.bmwocpodcast.com, will be the instructions on how you can apply to be part of the 5th season of the podcast. And on that same website, if you click on BMWOC Magazine on a tab, you'll be able to read and see the last 8 issues of the BMWOC Magazine, and it'll also give you information on how you can email us at BMWOC@ALSTNTEC.com, and that's BMWOC@ALSTNTEC.com if you would like to contribute to the 2020 magazine. And if you didn't catch any of that, I'm on Facebook and Alston, and you can contact me directly, or you can hit me up and we can schedule a call to talk about what you would like to do for the magazine or the podcast.
All right. Well, you guys heard it live, and you heard Ann say if you are interested in contributing, please reach out to her. I can tell you Ann is on Facebook quite often these days, and we get to see lovely videos from her. Just seen another one the other day. It was very good, by the way. So there's no reason that you cannot get a hold of Ann. She is very serious about her craft and what she does. It's very important. So please, if you plan on reaching out, that when you do reach out, that you are prepared to answer the questions properly and know what exactly that you would like to contribute, because, like I said, this is an opportunity. It's not just about being in the magazine, but it's definitely something that we all want to be educated on when they do come out. So, again, Ann, I want to say thank you for being patient, for coming on the show this evening and spending some time with us. And do you have any last words for our listeners?
Well, thank you so much, Kimberly, for, again, having me on your podcast and your radio program. You are a wonderful host. You're an excellent and superior corporate sponsor. Let me tell you, this girl here, if anybody wanted to know about Kimberly McLemore, she is everywhere, and she's definitely a supporter for small businesses in her own right and everything. And so my last words is just always be a continuous learner. Just be a continuous learner and pay it forward, because the things that I've done in my life, I can tell you, the Lord has blessed me to be able to do what I do. We didn't talk about the destination achievers, but on the other side of things, if you're a continuous learner and you pay it forward to others, you're going to find that you are going to be blessed with an abundance of knowledge and wisdom beyond whatever you can imagine. And And again, if anybody has any questions about how to start a magazine or any of that, I'll be happy to answer a few questions and things like that if you have that, or if you want to reach out to me for the podcast or the magazine, I would love to hear from you. And thank you again, Kimberly, for having me on your podcast platform.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. And for everyone else, I want to say, like I said, go on ahead and reach out to Ann if you have any questions about the magazine and how to contribute. But for everyone else, as you know, the Author's Corner is coming out in 2020. We are going to be on a new platform in 2020. We will be on iHeartRadio. Also want to just a quick tip to remind you all that in the month of December, we shut down. So there will be no shows in the month of December because it's an opportunity for everyone to kind of relax, spend time with their families, and, of course, get prepared for 2020. But if you are interested in being on the show in 2020, all you need to do is send me a short bio, book cover, and a professional pic to KimberlyMMclemore@gmail.com. And you can do that anytime. I'm already starting to fill up very quickly. So if you don't reach out to me sooner than later, you will probably be waiting another year in order to get onto this platform and share about your books or magazines and all the other things that you do out here in our communities. So, again, I do want to say thank you very much for all being a part of Vigilant Broadcasting. Like I said, we are going to be on another platform coming in January. December, we will be shut down. But you're more than welcome to reach out to me, author Kimberly McLemore, at KimberlyMMclemore@gmail.com, and let me know if you'd like to be a part of the show and as a guest. And also the book, Are You Living or Existing? Pros and Cons of Balancing Life, on Amazon. We still only have a couple more months before the end of the year. Special sale will be going back to the regular prices, so you may want to consider getting a book as a great gift for the holidays, because if you don't understand what Are You Living or Existing, then that means you definitely need to get this book. It'll help you do a little self-assessment and understand who you are and what it is that you are trying to do, and if you're living your best life. And, again, thank you all for tuning in tonight and for being patient on our show. We had some great authors this evening, but until next time, you all have a wonderful evening, and good night.
Good night, everyone, and thank you for tuning in tonight. We'll be back next month on Friday evening at 7 p.m. EST with 2 more amazing guests. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Periscope at Author Kimberly McLemore and at Talk Radio TV Network, LLP.